Well, welcome to the next video in the Crypto Trading Mastery Training. In this video, we'll dive into what are called value channels. And the way to look at value channels, I really think that this is kind of a secret to support and resistance in your charting. And if I were to say there's one aspect to charting that I think has made the biggest difference on me having successful trading, is that the ability to draw these value channels and trade off them, because you'll see here as we go through this video, they're pretty powerful if you actually do it correctly. And I'm not sure where I exactly picked up this concept. I'm pretty sure it was from a book, but I think I've combined a couple different things, and if I can remember the book, I will put an actual text or link below the video in the training. I'll see if I can actually find the actual book. But this concept, I think, is very powerful because when you're doing support and resistance, what are you trying to find? You're trying to find the place where price has actually hit a resistance level or price hits a support level, right? And the concept of value channels that I'll get into here in a second does this kind of naturally in what you're trying to do and how you're analyzing the chart. The other thing that it does is that with value channels, you're inherently trading or looking at the chart the way that smart money does, okay? Smart money trades at a much larger time frame than most people. I'm talking weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years, okay? Because smart money, they're trading with larger capital, and they're looking for larger term plays. And with larger capital, really at the end of the day, you just can't enter a position and exit a position real quickly. There has to be liquidity in the market, and then you have to slowly get in and slowly get out, right? So when you're looking at these value channels, you're trading with the smart money, and that's key. And I think that's why it works very well. And I think that's why, as you learn this concept, you'll grow to appreciate it, as I have as well. So let's first talk about what you're trying to do with value channels and why they're called value channels, okay? So we're looking at AEON BTC here. And here's what a value channel is. And I've already got a couple of them drawn. A value channel is where the majority of the trading action has happened, okay? And think about it this way. Think about, you're trying to define where does people think that this thing is, or where are people having the most, not argument, but they're trying to decide what this thing is worth. Where does the majority of that activity happen, right? What range does that activity happen? And it's a little bit better with a visual here, okay? And I'm just going to cover, because the powerful thing is that you can look at horizontal value channels, but you can also look at diagonal value channels, okay? And when you combine all these, it becomes very powerful. But we're just going to cover horizontal at first, because this really lays out the concept very well, okay? And when you look at, let me remove all this stuff, okay? And let's look at and say, if we just look at this chart, we're looking at the daily, right? Where has the majority of trading happened? All right. The majority of trading has happened here. You can just look at that, right? Now there's been some, and when I say majority of trading, I'm saying range, right? The majority of trading has happened in this range, right? Now let's say that now there's another range up here too. There's been some trading up here, okay? So when you're looking at this, where has the majority of the price action, the value of this asset, where has it been priced at, right? Well, the longest time frame is here, right? That's the majority of the trading. This is, hopefully you see this. I can't make it any more clearer than this. What you're looking for is, what is the majority of trading range? Where's the majority of trading, right? And when you're doing this, you're not looking for the necessary the spikes. Okay, you know, I said that that's in a previous training video. I did say that that's one of the most important candles or portions of the candle. That's not true with value channels. With value channels, you're looking at the close and the open, and you're always looking at a larger time frame than what you're trading at. Okay, so if I was trading on the dailies, if I was looking to do a long swing trades off dailies, I would want to look at the weeklies. Okay, I would draw my value channels on the weeklies, and we'll get into this in more detail. But for now, let's say that we want to do shorter swing trades, so we're going to draw our value channels on the daily. All right. And this is where it becomes very obvious, okay? So when you're looking at an asset, you're trying to say, where has the majority of the trading action happened? In what range? So we're going to use the actual, and I'll go to the tool here so you can see it. We're going to use the actual parallel channel tool, and we're going to then we're going to create our upper and lower range value channel, okay? Now, this is much an art, right, as it is a science, but what you're looking for is that you're looking for where is the majority of trading happened, and you're playing off the actual, you're actually going off the opens and closes. And you're going to see me draw it a very specific way here, okay? So first I drew it a little bit high, so I would probably draw it off this range here. And then I would draw it up here, okay? Now, why did I exclude this part and why did I draw it here? Okay, that's what we're going to cover. But what am I trying to do? I'm trying to draw a channel that has the majority of trading action, the majority in open and closes on the daily. Okay, so if I put this here, and I could maybe even go down a little bit more if I wanted to, right there. Let me zoom in a little bit. You know, you don't have to be precise, but it is sometimes good to be precise with this, right? So I would, that is actually pretty good. So, but I would put it up here just a little bit more, and there's a reason for that, and I'll cover that here in a second. So when we look at the majority of trading on this asset, it's happened in this range, right? The majority of trading has happened. Now, what has price done recently? It's broke out of this value channel, okay? Now, let me ask you a question. If you're smart money, okay, and you're looking at this asset, and smart money buys low and they sell high. That's what they do, okay? They buy when everybody else is selling down here, and I already answered the question, and they sell when things are overpriced, okay? And they sell into strength. That's what smart money does. And they're very patient, all right? So if you're looking at this, where are you going to buy if you're smart money? Most likely you're going to say, I'm going to buy down here. I mean, that's a given. That's where you want to buy anyways, right? So when you look at these value channels, this is where smart money is buying. And you're looking for accumulation of smart money at these levels, all right? The other thing is that with value channels, what you do is with a ray or with a trend line, so I'll use a horizontal ray, you put a center of the actual value channel right there. And notice how as we put a center, we'll probably put it more towards the center here. That's more towards the center. Notice how that cuts the price action in half, right? See how we cut the price action in half? Now you're going to notice something as we go to the 1 hour, I bet. Oops, here we go. We go to the 1 hour. You're going to notice that price happens to bounce off this range. Remember, support and resistance is a range, right? Well, look, as the 1 hour, we're seeing price bounce off this range, this value channel. It bounced off this value channel. It bounced off this value channel. Of course, it tested below, but it bounced off this value channel. It actually, you know, here, right? Now, of course, you'd say that that's a given. We drew these value channels on a larger time frame. But that's why you want to draw them on a larger time frame, because what these value channels really show you is the true value, the true traded value of that asset, okay? See how it's bouncing off this? Now, what amazes me even more, and I haven't really looked at this, is that look at price action around the middle area too. See, price action around the middle area. Look at that. It's bouncing off the middle area here, right? It's bouncing. It's really trading right around this middle area, right? And it's bouncing off this middle area. See this? Here, 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 right? And of course, just like anything else in trading, it doesn't work 100%, right? But it gives you a good range. These value channels give you a good range. The other thing is that what you'll notice, and this is why a lot of times you'll see me call things, and I usually get them pretty close, because look, what happens is that as something leaves a certain range of the value channel, right, it's going to bounce off the middle. This is a major resistance and support point, the middle of a value channel. And see how price has kind of played around there, right? It's really bounced off there, right? Here, it tried to retest it, but then it got rejected, right? And then what did it do here? It tried to retest it again, and then it got rejected, right? And then what did it do again? It tried to retest it, and then it finally broke through, and then it kind of broke through for a little bit. It retested. Now this becomes, this line now, as it's kind of come up, becomes support, right? And you can get even further, especially if you're looking to trade something quite a bit. You can get even further, and if we go to the daily again, or let's go to the 4 hour. See, this is what I do a lot, actually, and this is what we'll dive into as we move forward with value channels. I'll start on the daily, and then I'll go to the 4 hour, and then I'll take a horizontal ray, and I'll subdivide the actual value channel even more on the 4 hour. And then I'll go trade off the 1 hours. Okay? And see, here's the difference between when you're doing typical support and resistance, right? Typical support and resistance, what are you doing? With typical support and resistance, right? You're taking the close or the highs and you're drawing a support line, and you're making that a support line. And that holds up pretty well, right? That holds up really well usually, okay? It's a good thing. We covered support and resistance. Value channels is the next level of that, because I'm not saying that you ignore support and resistance. What I'm saying is that, or what I'm sharing here is that in addition to support and resistance, your value channels are your larger support and resistance areas, and they're more pronounced, and they're stronger, okay? That's the way to look at it. So this here, this line here, this area here is still a support. I mean, it's still a resistance area. It's still a, and I don't know why that didn't draw it. It's still a resistance area right here, okay? That's still a resistance area right here, okay? That's a given. That's a resistance area. But what's even stronger resistance area is the mid-level on the 4 hour is a value channel line on the 4 hour, okay? And you'll see here, right here, I drew this on the 4 hour, and look at the 1 hour. It closed here, and then it got rejected, and then it broke through, and then this area is acting as support, right? That's the 4 hour value channel. Now, of course, because you're drawing this on larger time frames, but once again, it holds up because it's on larger time frames. And if you're trading on shorter time frames, and let's say you want to scalp, right? And we go to the 15 minutes, this gives you even more strength to look at to say, okay, well, where are my support lines? Of course, you're going to still draw, you're going to draw support and resistance, or you're going to have support and resistance in your head as you're trading. But these value channels become even stronger, okay? Hopefully that's clear. Hopefully you can see, and probably what I should do is just go to another chart, and then you'll just see it hold up even more, right? And actually, let's do that. Let's just go to Bitcoin. So I'm going to pause the video, and then I'll go to actually I'll draw it right now. So there's no reason to pause the video. So we'll do USD, and then we'll do Coinbase. And you'll see I already have a value channel here, right? Now, if you've been in my group a while, you remember, maybe you don't remember, but I called this resistance point here at, or actually here. Was it here? There was some point I called that was really spot on because I was using value channels, and I did this on the downside as well, right? So let's draw our value channels on Bitcoin, and we'll start with a parallel channel. Now keep in mind, now I'll get into more advanced stuff, okay? So with value channels, what we'll start covering is that, okay, here's a value channel of Bitcoin, right? It's traded in this range, right? It's a weaker value channel just because you could call it a value channel. Let me just keep it at that. We'll call it a value channel, but I'll get into that here in a later video. And then here, right? Oops, wrong tool. Here is a value channel. Okay. And you could almost say that this is here. Now, keep in mind, this is where I'll add additional concepts, okay? Value channels support other value channels. So you could have an overall value channel, right? So you would have an overall value channel, and then you'd have sub-value channels, all right? Right now we're creating the overall value channel. Now the other thing that what I would do here, this run-up is parabolic, okay? So on parabolic run-ups, you kind of ignore those for value channels because these are really not, they're not true value ranges of what something is traded at, okay? They're excitement. Here is where you would start drawing your value channels, all right? Is off here. Now what you're going to see, a good value channel has trading below the value channel, okay? Because that shows you where the true value is, right? So, and then a good value channel will have typically trading above the value channel. There's always tests, okay? And what you'll find a lot is you'll find something like this happen in Bitcoin. Here's the top of the value channel. It went down, tested the bottom, and then it went back and it didn't quite reach the top, right? And then it goes down and it tests the middle, and then it goes back and tests the top. Sometimes it breaks through if you see strength. And then what did it do? It rejects and goes all the way down to the bottom of the value channel. And actually, I would put this here. So here is probably where I'd put the value channel. And then it gets rejected and it goes all the way down. This is a pattern you typically see on a lot of assets, is this type of actual value channel. And keep in mind, we're on the daily, right? So this means that you're looking at larger trends. You're looking at larger value, right? So we're looking at larger value. So what do you think? I just drew a ray in the middle here. What do you think is going to happen when Bitcoin hits this level here at 9,100, right? It's probably going to have some resistance there, right? It's probably going to hit some resistance here because it's the middle of this value channel, right? Now we can go to the 4-hour and do the same thing, right? So now we're on 4-hour time frames. And the other thing that you can do if you want to trade this more, let's say you want to trade this more, not more aggressively, but let's say you want to trade, you're trading this on smaller swings, right? Well, what you can do, and I do this a lot, is then you draw another value channel on the 4-hour, right? Because we're looking to maybe do a swing trade, right? So we want to know, well, what's the value right now, right? And then if you extend this out, sometimes you can extend this out through recent trading activity, right? And then we'll go to the 1-hour time frame. And of course it holds up because we just drew it on the 4-hour. But what you'll see here is you'll see various resistance points based on larger trends. Based on, and I have to really stress this because this is a big point, and it's hard to, based on where the majority of trading action has happened. Remember, a value channel is not, you're not trying to do support and resistance. What are you trying to do? And I should have re-emphasized this here as I drew this. You're trying to capture, without much white space, the majority of the trading action. Okay? The majority of the trading action. So if we look at the recency of this chart from just 2018, right? The majority of the trading action, except for this run up here, has been in this range. That's been the majority of the trading action of Bitcoin, right? And then you can further break that up by doing, and we'll put a horizontal ray, by doing subchannels, right? You have subchannels here. So what do you think these subchannels are going to do at lower time frames? What do you think is going to happen at these lower time frames? I'm asking you like you can answer, but hopefully you're saying, well, they're going to act as support and resistance, right? They're going to be heavy support and resistance points, right? So let's see if that holds up. Well, this one broke through real quick, but then it got, remember, support and resistance, as we said, is a range, but it gives you that range, right? It kind of gives you that range. That's a 1% range there. It traded around this range here, right? As we go through here, it bounced off this range here, didn't quite test this range here, right? And then this is why I'm saying this is powerful, because this in combination, and hopefully you're seeing the power of it, but this in combination with then subdividing these things into further value ranges, they'll show you the middle of the value of that asset. They'll show you where the majority of capital has been actually traded or actually exchanged hands. The majority of value of that asset has actually been transacted, okay? And this is not in a vacuum, okay? The value channel, the reason why I covered it at this point is because you have to understand support and resistance, right? And then also in conjunction with this, since we've gone through volume, right, and candles, you're taking all of that knowledge of support and resistance, of candles and volume, okay, and you're applying it to these value channels, right? So as price moves down to this level, you know that this is a center of a value channel, okay? So you're looking, you're expecting to see further strength from price action, right? Is this clear? The other thing, I'm saying that like you can actually say, yeah. The other thing is, as it moves between these value channels, you're expecting to see strength or weakness or something to happen, okay? That's what you're expecting to see. These are your pivot points, all right? In addition to your pivot points of typical support and resistance, right? Like I said, this is next level stuff because you're taking things to another layer. And here's the thing. The other thing to keep in mind is that on these value channels, okay? And let me just reset this. On these value channels, what do you think on the daily here? What do you think this here, this range here, this top of the value channel, it doesn't, for it to break through that, that's strength, right? So when you draw value channels, like we have two value channels here. We have a lower one here and we have a higher one. You want to see something like this. See this green candle here? When it breaks through one value channel to another, you want to see strength and volume and true price action movement for it to break through a value channel, okay? As it breaks through that, then you're looking for, okay, well, where is the resistance points? So as we break through this other mini value channel, this is a mini value channel because it was I think we drew it on the 4 hour, right? Yeah. For it to break through this value channel, we want to see strength on a lower time frame at the 1 hour because we drew it on the 4 hour, right? So I know I'm layering some concepts here, but we're going to cover this in detail, and then I'll wrap it all up with a closing video, right? Because we still have to cover diagonal value channels, okay? But the key, what you're trying to do, and I'm not saying trying, what you're doing here is you're using the chart. You're using the chart. You're using the real trading range of this asset to tell you what's the true value of this. This is what's happened. This is what the market, you're not making any assumptions. This is what the market has traded in. This is the majority of the trading of this asset. If you were to say, what is Bitcoin worth? Okay? This is another way to look at it. This is the way I look at it. So is that if I were to say what's Bitcoin worth, I would say, well, what is it averagely traded at? That sounds a little mumbled there. What has been the average trading range, right? So, for instance, if you were to say, well, what is gas worth? You would know that it's worth $1.20, and that's the real answer, right? Whatever someone's willing to pay. I get that. That's the real answer. But if you were to say, well, what has gas been worth the last year, right? Well, you might have remembered back in January you bought it for, I don't know, $2.30, and then today it might be worth $5, right? So you might say, this last year, what has gas been worth? You might say, well, probably around $3, $4, right? That's what you're doing with these value ranges. You're saying, you're taking kind of like, what is the trading? Where has it been the majority at, right? If gas was worth $5 at the beginning of the year, but then now is worth $1, right? You would probably say that the gas is worth less, because even, let's say that it was only at $5 for like a couple days is the best way to look at it. If gas was only at $5 for a couple days in the beginning of the year, but now it's been worth anywhere between $1 and $2, you're going to say it's worth $1 and $2. That's the better way to look at it. Does that make sense? So when you're looking at value ranges, that's what you're drawing in the chart. And then you're putting on top of that support and resistance. You're reading of volume. You're reading of candlesticks and everything else. But if you start here at a higher time frame, you're starting with where the smart money buys. You're starting with the larger trend, and you're starting with the strongest support and resistance and value that asset is traded at. Okay, so I know it. I think if you get it, then you're probably already bored of me just going on and on about it. But I'm going on and on in different ways because I want to make sure that everybody that is watching the video, watching the training, gets this at a core level. Because this is, to me, this combined with everything we've covered so far is why you really don't need indicators. I do use them. We'll cover them in the training, right? But this is, you're trading off the reality of what this asset has been worth, and you're trading off what every indicator and every other trader will be looking at a larger time scale. And I probably should have started there with all of this, but that's really what you're doing when you're drawing these value channels. And this is just the horizontal ones, okay? We've just covered the horizontal ones. We haven't took it to a whole new level. So let me do one more chart just to be very clear, okay? So let's do strat. You'll see here strat of a value channel. And this is where I want to just talk about when strat broke this value channel, we added to our positions. So we were buying positions down here, right? This is actually, we were buying we loaded up heavy in strat down here. Because keep in mind too, here's the challenge with me drawing these value channels right now, is that everything's kind of crossed through value channels, right? So here's the other thing to keep in mind. Value channels will tell me where to sell. Okay? Like if I'm just doing a short-term swing, I'm going to draw another value channel, right? And see, the problem is with big price moves like this, it's hard to say, right? But I'm looking for heavy strength to break through Why does that not seem straight? I don't know why that doesn't seem straight. So here we go. It is not straight. Let me go here. So I'm looking for heavy strength to break through the next value channel. So when price action moves through one value channel to another value channel, you want to see strength. And we're starting to see strength. It's 4 hours into the new day, and we're starting to see strength into this next day, right? So what do we expect to happen if this is the true value channel? And this would be this. It's probably more like this if I were to draw this. The problem when you get into these next levels is that it hasn't traded much. It's traded here, right? But we look at where is the majority of trading happened on this asset. The majority of trading has really happened in this range, right? It's if you look at this, but it's about equal. It happened up here too, right? So it happened up here. So this is where we would want to put a center line here on the horizontal ray. And you can use a trend line too. I just like to use the ray. So the trend line is this. It's the trend line, but then you have to click it and then click where you want it to end. Okay. I just like using the horizontal ray because it goes all the way across. So now we broke up the value channel here in the center. So the challenge with this is that has there been a lot of trading in this range? No. That could be a good thing. That could be a bad thing, right? Because no one knows what it's really worth because there hasn't been a lot of trading in this range. There's been a lot of trading in this range. So there's been a lot of argument about price. There's been a lot of discussions about price, right? So it's breaking through. It broke through this value channel with strength. That's good. Sometimes you'll see a retest of this, top of this value channel, but we're not seeing that, right? It broke through. And now the expectation is it's going into a new value channel, okay? And this is where you start looking at support and resistance, right? So let's go on a 4-hour time frame here. And you're seeing some breakthrough in strength here, at least with volume. And this is where, okay, it broke through. It's in a new value channel, right? So you're going to be looking at your resistance levels, right? Which here is a resistance level. And then here is a resistance level, right? Actually, this whole range is probably closer here. So as it goes into this new value channel, you're going to be looking to see, obviously you've got your support and resistance, and you're saying, okay, well, this is the first test of to see whether or not it passes this area, right? Because that's what other traders, that's what other people are looking at for the value of this asset, right? The other thing that you're looking at is obviously tick marks of Satoshi levels, right? You're looking at Satoshi levels, right? Where does that play into the value channels, right? A lot of times you'll see the value channels are really close to Satoshi levels. I mean, that's just a given, right? That's where price naturally stops. But as it moves up, right? If it does break through and it finds resistance here, what you're going to be expecting and what you're looking for is that as it approaches this value level here, let's draw some arrows. As it approaches this value level up here, you're expecting some resistance. As it goes down and maybe retraces, you're expecting some resistance there at this value level. Because remember, we drew these on the daily, right? And I haven't even brought in the SMAs or EMAs or anything else. I mean, that's, like I said, we're layering the concepts here, right? We're layering the concepts. So hopefully so far what you've seen in value channels with just what I've shown so far really show you the strength of this. I mean, you'll see here on the 4-hour. Now let's go to the 1-hour on strat just to tie in the loose ends. So look at this rejection on the 4-hour, on the 1-hour. We're seeing rejection of this value channel and it finally breaks through, right? Support on the middle of the value channel here, right? Support. And then it did cross through, but it didn't quite hit to the bottom, right? It hit to the middle, which would be the center of a value channel, the center of a center, right? You're kind of putting it in force. And then it jumped up, went to the center of the value channel, right? You'll see how this, let me just be very clear. I'm sure it's clear already, but this is where, and this isn't exactly the center. I don't know what I was drawing there. So this is the center. Maybe I moved it. And then let's draw another center, or the center of, so you're drawing it in force, right? You know, this is, I'm telling you, this is, I know people learn Fibonacci and all these other retracements. This is better than Fibonacci. Fibonacci really says that it's some kind of algorithm or some kind of special number retracement. And yeah, it works, but it also works, okay, I don't think it works. So I'll just say that. Because it depends on where you draw it, and it depends on how you draw it. You know why this works? Because you're taking the true value of what's happened. And of course, history doesn't repeat itself, but in trading, what do people have to go on? They only have where the price has been, or what this thing is worth, or their expectations and greed and fear, right? So you're taking the actual trading range of this asset, and you're taking the real actions of the market. You're not taking some kind of number that, yeah, is found throughout nature and places and everything else, and then applying it to, you know, mathematical retracement levels. What you're doing here, and as we go to the 1 hour time frame, I anticipate, what do we see? We see rejection on this range, right? See that? It's hugging that range. It's hugging that range. It's hugging that range, right? Now, this is where it's harder to draw this now, because I can't find a chart, because things are moving so much. I can't find a chart that has these value channels that we can trade off of right now, because things are starting to really move, right? See, these are really helpful. This value channel was really helpful for me when I was trading strat probably 2 weeks ago, okay? Because 2 weeks ago, my value channel was only up to here, right? And I was drawing the value channel from here. You know, I was drawing the value channel from here, really, right? And really looking and saying, okay, where when I'm scalping, when I'm doing everything else, where am I getting out of positions, right? So this value channels, they're good as long as there's been trading in those ranges, right? So as you get up here to uncertainty, then you're going to rely on support and resistance levels, but then there'll be new value channels created in this range, okay? You'd also be, one of the other things that I suggest that you would do is you just look at a bigger value channel, right? So if you're smart money, right, and you're smart money and you're trying to say, where do I get out, right? Where's the exit on this position that I loaded up on here, right? Where do I get out, right? Now, because crypto is such a new asset class, some might hold and go to new time highs. That's maybe what they're looking to do, okay? But understanding that they're still looking at these value channels from a larger perspective, meaning that we go here. And, you know, one thing I probably should have mentioned is that I've talked to people that actually have large capital to put at play. And they don't say, they don't trade off value channels, because they don't call it that. What they trade off is they look at they look at opportunities to buy when something is underpriced. And they look and say, how do I look at an asset and find out if it's underpriced? And this is the shortcut to doing that, okay? Because when they're looking at, they've done their research on Aeon, or Strat, I should say. They've done their research on Strat. And then they say, okay, well, is it still priced well? And then they'll look and say, okay, well, where should I think about selling, right? That's really where they look at. So as it gets up to this value range here, right? And as you break up these see, we're looking at and I'm only using, I'm using that recent area. I should be using this recent area. The problem with new things on new exchanges is that just because this is where you'd want to draw your overall value channel. Okay. So I screwed that up. So you should try to go back as far as you can when you draw a larger value channel, right? So when you're drawing a larger value channel, we want to include the majority of trading. Where does the majority of trading happen on this asset? At the time that it's been on this exchange, it's happened in this range, right? So this actually, I should have done this. I apologize. This is actually the right way to do it, which is from the beginning. This is the value channel, and this actually gives you the full picture, right? This gives you the full picture. So if I remove this, right here gives you the full picture, because look at this. This is the center of the value channel, the larger time frame value channel, right? So what's going to happen when it hits this range right here? It's going to hit heavy resistance, right? When it hits that middle section, because this is the largest value channel we can draw on this asset, right? So when it hits that center area there, and I don't know I assume it's probably this one right here. When it hits this area right here, we would expect heavy resistance, right? That's what we would expect. Now, we want to see it break that area, which is another 30% with strength, and then use this as support, right? But what do you think is going to happen once it hits this top range, right? It's traded above that before, but it's been rejected both times, right? So usually you'll see a retest of this top range and then a heavy rejection down to the middle of this. And sometimes, if there's just uncertainty, you'll see another, like a retest down below, and then there will be strength, and then it'll kick back up, and it'll trade sideways for quite a while before it actually retests and try to go to make another high. So hopefully that's clear. I should have mentioned, that you should try to draw larger value ranges like we have here. Let's encompass the most of the trading range, right? And you'll wonder, why did I keep this out? Well, because this is not this. To include this, if we were to include this up here, okay, and then include this down here, you could say that, you could reason that could be used. I think that that's the wrong way to do that, because the challenge is you're using the very high that this price has got, okay? And it's not really encompassing where the majority of the trading has happened on this asset. The majority of the trading has happened in this box that I created here. You see that? If I were to say, I just want the majority of trading. I don't want the swing ups or swing downs, right? I want the majority of trading. This is where you want to encompass that, okay? That's why I didn't include up here, right? Because it's going to hit heavy resistance when it gets up here. And then same with the downside. You want to know, where is it very undervalued? If it ever gets below here, based on the historical trading of this asset, it's a buy zone, right? And if you see volume and stopping volume and everything else, when it gets below this value channel, right? Let's say that Bitcoin tanks and then this starts to tank and things go, things don't have strength anymore, right? And you see it get down here, and you're still long in the crypto market and everything else, and it gets down here and you see heavy stopping volume, heavy volume and everything else, right? Well, your expectation, you would want to enter with the smart money, with the capital in there, because you're entering at the bottom of a value channel. And that's what we've done. We're up 34% on some of this stuff. We bought down here as well. I think I've trade strat ever since it hit the exchange. Also, Aeon is a good example, okay? And I'm just using this because this one I identified the value channel very early on, and the second that it hit down here, just started acquiring positions, right? And then we rebought when it hit down here at the center of the value channel, okay? And then now we're up on those positions 40%. On these positions, we're up like 52%, I think. Yeah, 50%. So this, and then as we break through another value channel, as we draw it at the larger time frame here, we would probably add to the position, and maybe they'd be quick scalps, right? So hopefully that's clear. Hopefully there'll be a couple more videos on value channels, because we have to cover diagonals, and then we have to tie it all in, and then it'll probably be a recap, okay? So when I talk about value channels, hopefully you see the strength in what this does, right? It's drawing them on a larger time frame and then going to a lower time frame to then trade or do your entries. Now the other thing is that you can draw these on the 1 hour and then go trade and scalp on the 15-minute or the 5-minute, right? You can, so it's this in conjunction with support and resistance, all right? That makes this so powerful, and all the other stuff you learned, okay? So hopefully that's all clear. I do look forward to seeing you in the next training video. And the next training video will be, we'll cover diagonal value channels. And that will, I think you'll, hopefully, I'm assuming you like what you see so far. You know, share with me, because I think that this is actually, here's what you should do, okay? I should have said this before. Take charts that you trade and draw value channels. Start drawing them. And you can share them with me and ask me if they're right, but start drawing them. And I think, I don't even think, I know when you start, and I very seldom am very like, hey, I know beyond a doubt. I'm pretty confident that if you draw value channels and you're drawing them right, that you're going to come to me and say, you know what, this makes sense. I'm amazed that when I draw value channels on the daily or the weekly, that price just bounces off these ranges, or that I can see where price action is kind of going to move, or where it's going to operate around. Okay, when I started doing this, that's the epiphany I got to. So hopefully you'll get to that as well. The only way to get to that, I should say, is to start drawing them yourselves. Okay, start drawing these yourself, and start drawing these on the stuff you're trading. All right, this is beyond support and resistance. You're looking at support and resistance, but this will be stronger support and resistance than support and resistance is, if there's such a thing, if that makes sense. So that's all. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.